Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King. And the goal of this podcast is to help you create not only an ecosystem of academic excellence, but habits of excellence across your organization, your mission driven organization, your school, and what you're doing on a day to day basis. And through inspiring conversations, practical strategies, and actionable insights, we empower educators, leaders, and change makers just like yourself. Foster trust, collaboration, and be able to help you enhance these habits of excellence that show up or don't show up in your school, in your organization, and in your life on a day to day basis. In my newest book, Contagious Culture, one of the quotes that I mentioned early in one of the early chapters is, if the purpose of education is to replace an empty mind with an open one, then our educators have to be open to shifting their strategies to ultimately enhance our students. Now, a very simple quote, and it was tailored to helping educators understand, like, look, if our goal is to empower, transform, expose, and be able to be inspirational for these young minds to be able to want to engage, want to learn, want to be educated, want to be equipped with the tools necessary to be able to become globally competitive leaders, then it's up to us as educators, it's up to us as leaders in the classroom, in the schools, in our communities, to ultimately open our own minds, shift our own perspectives, and be willing to go in our toolboxes and either add tools, take away tools that got a little rust on them, and maybe brush off some of those old tools that we've maybe learned and have just been sitting at the bottom of the toolbox. It's time to be able to bring them out. And I want you as the organizational leader to do the same thing. I want you to really think about, before we get started in this episode, what are some things that you maybe have written down, learned, interacted with, engaged with, things that you've heard on podcasts, read in books, in so many different avenues that you may are stopped using on a day-to-day basis? What are things that you have wanted to do, but you didn't necessarily have the support, the know-how, or the consistency in continuing to do it on a day-to-day basis? What are things that you maybe need to start doing as an educator, as a leader, as a change maker, that there's a little fear, there's a little anxiety, and there's a little imposter syndrome from you doing it so that you could be able to best show up for the people that you were called to serve? That's what this podcast is about. Ultimately, we're going to talk about, my story and how I got involved in this work of contagious culture. I'm going to talk a little bit about cultivating an attitude of achievement and why, by cultivating an attitude of achievement, it will be able to immensely empower our organizations in just an amazing way. And then I'm going to leave you, as always, with a few tips, with a few strategies, because I don't want to sit in the philosophical. I want to be able to give you practical strategies, skills, and tips that you can be able to use on a day-to-day basis so that ultimately you can actually do better. Because if we commit to being better and commit to doing better, then ultimately the impact of what we do and how we become who we're supposed to be will impact other people. All right. So at the core of my journey as an educator, from my role as a former ELA teacher at a failing district, from my role as a dean of students at a Charlotte-based STEM school, from my former role as a director of school culture and student advancement, from my role as a board member, all of these different things, a profound realization that I've had is about the power of relationships. A friend of mine used to always communicate that relationships are the breadcrumbs to our destiny. And one of my favorite books, and I talk about it all the time on the Contagious Culture Podcast, one of my favorite books by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, Who Not How, talks about this idea of not just trying to sit within the how and figuring out all of the different ways to do this thing, but it talks about how to sit in the who and ask myself, well, who is the person that I will need to be able to drive change forward? Who is the person that I will need to be able to help my students academically achieve? Who do I need to be able to help me be less of a procrastinator? Who do I need that can be able to do X? So if you're struggling with X, who is the person that can get you to Y? If you're sitting at the A, who is the person that can get you to the B? So, what I've realized in my career is this ability to connect deeply with students, with families, with the community. It's always allowed me to stand out. And this talent was recognized as a former board member, and I was praised by educators and district leaders and principals and fellow teachers for this capacity to build and foster meaningful connections. And for a long time, I accepted this feedback with, frankly, humility. And without fully understanding the depth of my approach, I just continued to just do it as I was always taught to do it. Create, connect, and be able to leverage that relationship in a way that can be able to not only advance you forward, but one of the things that I've learned in my life is the best way to achieve the goals that you want to achieve is to help somebody else achieve the goals that they're supposed to achieve. And I believe through service, that's the way that I've been able to create success in everything that I've been able to do, from serving business coaches in their organization, to serving business leaders, to serving schools, to volunteering, and all of these various opportunities. It was, how can I help that person so I can either get into their mastermind, learn their network, build a skill set, get connected to that person, but ultimately through service that has allowed me to be able to create meaningful connections, that's allowed me to develop a roadmap to how I can be successful. So that's tool number one for you. And that wasn't even supposed to be a tool, but I want you to write that down. Who can I serve? What can I serve? How can I serve? That can teach me something, connect me with someone, or be able to position me in the place where I can grow towards my specific vision. Because oftentimes we want something, we want to achieve something, we want to do something, but who are you actually helping? Outside of your family, outside of your children, outside of your job, because those things really don't count. Now, they do count in some type of way, but outside of the normal things that you're already responsible to do, how are you serving an institution, a company, a community, a person that is connected and interconnected to where you're supposed to be going in your life? And what I realized is it wasn't until like teaching that I began to refine what I call this skill of cultivating meaningful relationships, focusing not just on conveying content, but on building lasting relationships with students, with other peers, with families. And through daily and weekly reflection, I began to realize that to start with heart is to look beyond the surface level metrics, such as academic behavior, such as test scores, such as outward appearances, to see this individual. It really allowed me to understand the person's story. And it reminds me so often how when I'm connecting with people, whether it's at a gas station, at a restaurant, or even at my storage unit, I run into people literally all the time. And it always comes up, what do you do? What do I do? Or who are you? Who am I? But I always want to know, what is the story behind you being that entrepreneur? What is the story that led to you buying that car? What is the story that led to you wanting to have that child? What is the story this morning that led to you wanting to wear that shirt? And I think there's a beauty when you allow people to sit and reflect on the story behind a decision, the story behind a consequence, the story behind a profession, the story behind a child conception. And I think it allows people to reflect in real time, and through them expressing that story, it allows you to be able to cultivate meaningful connections through authentic engagement. So, again, this aligns with my belief that true judgment comes from the heart, not from actions alone. And in cultivating this idea of a heart of harvest, I've always sought to, what I would say, uplift others in the best way that I could. And why and where this idea comes from is I've learned it as a child. And there's so many different things that I've learned and so many different things that I'm still working on unlearning as a child. But one of the things that I've learned is it's important for us as people to connect with people, be present with people, but always find a way to be able to uplift them. Always be able to leave something better than when you found it. Always wanting to be able to connect with people at their level and hear them enough to be able to fill the gap. And what I've learned is that this genuine effort is what breaks down barriers and creates an environment where people feel safe to open up. And this ethos forms the foundation of this idea of start with heart and this philosophy that I talk about so often in the book, which has influenced not only my approach to education, but my interactions with so many people around me. And for people that are just tuning in to the Contagious Culture Podcast, I am not a traditional educator by any means. I did not pursue a degree in education. My degree is in finance. Nor did I study educational leadership in a graduate program. I didn't spend years preparing for this test that we call a praxis or earn credentials or get certified as a teacher. Instead, I leaned on a gift. I leaned on a gift that was given to me, one that has led me to being one of the youngest deans in a charter school network, nominated for beginning teacher of the year, nominated as one of the youngest board members in the state of North Carolina at 27 years old, a director at age 30. So look, let me tell you something. My track record and my resume speaks for itself. And over the years, I've helped thousands of students and educators transform their lives based upon one simple principle. You want to know what it is? Starting with heart. And then the books that I've written, the Mission Plan, the Decision, the Mission Plan, the Discovery, the Mission Plan, the Destiny, the Mission Plan, A Complete Guide to Success, The Writer's Game, The Business Behind Your Story, 25 Years of Heaven, a collection of poems. I have done this, as well as businesses I've built. The one constant has been my desire to make an impact. And my goal has always been to drive change in the lives of children and the lives of individuals, and to ultimately inspire them to believe in themselves so deeply that their belief becomes contagious, creating what I call a culture of hope, a culture of love, a culture of empowerment. And I remember a conversation I had with a principal of mine during my year at Monroe Middle School, shout out, as an ELA 8th grade teacher. And when I shared this, I didn't want to just teach. I wanted to change lives. I wanted to help students believe in their potential. I wanted students to understand that you can be successful no matter your circumstance, no matter your story of hardship, no matter the pain behind your words, no matter the tears behind your eyes. There's a testimony inside of you. And this vision guided me so often to being able to do the uncomfortable thing. And in this year that I was working as a teacher, I recognized that was probably the best year of my educational career, because it allowed me to unlearn, it allowed me to unpack, it allowed me to really become developed in this ability to humble myself, meet students where they are, and be able to literally embody this principle and this philosophy of starting with heart. I believe this work allowed me to even create this principle. And the power of relationships became even more evident as I worked with these students from various diverse backgrounds, various challenges, but every conversation, every moment, every connection reinforce that genuine care and trust are the foundation of meaningful, not only relationships, but learning experiences. So through my role as a leader in various school networks, I've seen firsthand how fostering this culture of belief, this culture of meaningful learning experiences and relationships and support can truly transform a school, and it truly can transform a classroom, but oftentimes it can truly transform a child. And it's about creating an ecosystem, an environment where everyone feels empowered to simply contribute, where the heart of the community beats together in the pursuit of these specific goals. Building this culture requires a dedication. Building this culture requires a deep sense of humility. Building this culture really means listening to people's stories, understanding their struggles, and acknowledging their potential. It means leading with empathy and modeling the behaviors you want to see in other people. It's about creating a space where students are not just defined by their circumstances, but by their potential and the beliefs of others that others have in them. So as I continue to reflect out loud on these experiences, I realize that what I've learned um, along this leadership journey is creating opportunities. I believe is our responsibility as leaders, creating a space where other people can see themselves and see their best, but you being able to identify how to connect the dots, not collect more dots, how to connect the dots. It's our responsibility to build bridges, not create division within our students. And the best leaders aren't the ones with the loudest voices. They're the ones who listen. They're the ones who uplift others. They're the ones who inspire people around them to reach for something greater, and not just something greater academically, not just something greater behaviorally, something greater within themselves and their actions and their choices and their behaviors and how they show up on a day-to-day basis, not something greater exterior, something greater within them. So whether you're in classrooms and boardrooms or in a community, I want you to approach every single day with this idea of starting with heart. Because by starting with heart, we create an environment where academic excellence is not just possible, but inevitable, because it's rooted in love. It's rooted in trust. It's rooted in this belief of every single person's potential. This is the foundation of a contagious culture where success is shared and everyone has a stake in creating a brighter future. Everyone, not just the students that are the highest achieving, not just the students that come from positive backgrounds, not just the students that have parents, two-parent households, everyone. And as I continue to embrace this philosophy and challenge other educators to embrace this philosophy, I recognize that the journey is never linear, because that's where I think a lot of leaders make the mistake. There are always new challenges. There's always new opportunities to grow. There's always new lessons to learn. But the one constant, the thread that ties everything together, is this commitment to leading with the heart, not just with the hand. It's the recognition that transformation doesn't happen overnight, but with patience, persistence, and genuine care, real change is possible. But not just possible, it's inevitable. Because when you think about changing the lives of children, changing the lives of our team members, changing the lives and the experiences within our customers, you have to ask yourself, and I want you to really reflect for a second, what is the change that you've embodied in your own life? Like, was it something that you just woke up the next morning and you just like all of a sudden just started working out for 45 minutes and you just started running 10 miles? Like, no, like it probably, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. If you wanted to eat an elephant, you have to do that one bite at a time. If you wanted to cut down a tree, you have to do it one swing at a time. But before you can start swinging, you have to sharpen your axe. But let me tell you something, by the end of this episode, I'm going to give you a tool to sharpen your axe. So in every single interaction that you have with students, are you leading with heart? And every single interaction that you're having with team members, are you leading with heart? This is what I want you to think about. And one of the most rewarding aspects of this work is watching students, teachers, parents discover their own potential, their own leadership potential, their own purpose, their own gift. And by empowering them to take ownership of their growth and that growth of the school community, we don't just create a sustainable model of success, we create a ripple. And when we throw that rock in the ocean, or when we throw that rock in the lake, those ripples, even if we can't see them on the surface, something's happening beneath the water. And leadership is not about one person at the top. It's about creating a network of leaders, a network of learners who are united by this common goal. So when everyone feels like they have a role to play, when everyone feels that their voice matters, when everyone feels that their value is immeasurable, that's how we begin to create and cultivate an attitude of achievement. And the first step in cultivating an attitude of achievement, I emphasize the profound what I call impact of being a living example, being the inspiration. And I think a lot of times we want to inspire, but the truth is, whether you like it or not, you're not inspirational. Like, how can we be inspirational if nothing that you are, nothing that you do, nothing that you wear, nothing that you say, nothing that you've lived, nothing that you've experienced, nothing that you've done is inspirational? Like, if you really look at your life and someone told a story and put your whole story on the big screen and shared a movie, what of your life is inspirational? That's why kids aren't engaged in your classroom. That's why they don't want to learn from you. That's why your teachers don't respect you. That's why your peers don't want to come to you. And the well-known adage that children are more likely to follow what they see rather than what they are told. So if you're telling students this standard of excellence, but you're not living it, then that's the problem. If you're communicating what students need to do, but you're not doing that, that is the issue. The cornerstone of influencing and motivating students and people in general begins with adopting an attitude of achievement over one of deficit. So if you're constantly complaining to your peers, to your teachers, to your students about the things that you don't have, then all students are now going to see is their deficiency in the things that they don't have. It's essential to first reflect on whether you are genuinely harboring this belief in yourself first, but in our students' potential. Like believing, for instance, that a student currently reading at a kindergarten level in 8th grade can progress and excel in their academic journey is necessary. This belief must be so deep rooted that infuses our students with a sense of discomfort, pushing them towards growth. It's about questioning whether we see these capabilities in our students past where they currently are in their circumstance. And I think when we allow ourselves to believe in students, when we allow ourselves to be able to um, invite positivity in, I believe our faith in the potential needs begin to permeate in the very core, challenging these children to reach beyond their current limitations. This mindset shift is critical for not only educators and not only people that are listening right now. It's real for everyone. And this genuine love for learning and achievement can create remarkable educational outcomes within the classroom, within your organization, within any form if you adopt it. My question for you, when is the last time that you read a book? When is the last time that you went to a conference? When is the last time that you studied your own craft? And the reason that I ask these very simple questions is because how do we expect our students to adopt a habit of learning, a culture of learning, if we're not learning? How do we ensure that our students have habits of excellence in the classroom if we don't have habits of excellence in our own lives? How do we expect students to come excited to class if we're not even excited to teach? How do we expect students to come on time if we're rolling in late with Starbucks? How do we expect students to be engaged in the lesson? But every single time where it's independent study time, we're on our phones, not even engaged in our students. How? I want to tell you a quick story. When I was a teacher, one of the most challenging experiences that I needed to learn myself is that these students can do it, even if the test scores don't communicate it. These students can learn, even if people don't believe that they can. These students want to be here, even if their attitudes show otherwise. These students love you, even if their behavior doesn't communicate that directly. And when all of the odds are against us as leaders, as educators, as change makers, it's our consistent commitment, it's our dedication, it's our focus, it's our modeling and mirroring the expectation. It's us showing up even when it's painful. It's us showing up even when it's uncomfortable. It's us showing up even when the students don't want to learn. It's us showing up every single day that allowed that behavior, that communication, that outside appearance, those heads that were down that now woke up, those minds that were closed that now woke up, those hearts that were broken now were mended and were emotionally, mentally, and academically and socially available to be able to receive the content that I was willing to provide. And what this did for me is it highlighted a very crucial lesson for a lot of educators that are tapped in right now. The importance, one, of fostering an environment where students feel empowered and recognized. It's about giving students platforms to lead so that it doesn't just validate their potential, but also shows that there's potential in every single student, and it creates a domino effect of enthusiasm for teaching. It creates a domino effect for excellence. It creates a domino effect for consistency. It creates a domino effect. By believing in our students enough to hand them the microphone, the clicker, or simply the space to express themselves, we cultivate a sense of belonging. We cultivate a sense of confidence. And for many educators that are listening, I want to give you a few questions to just reflect on. Number one, do we create a space where students feel safe to express themselves authentically? Number two, are our lessons designed to be inclusive, actively engaging students in the learning process? And then number three, if we were students in our own classrooms, would we feel empowered by our teacher to want to use our talents or even fail? And would we feel like failing, making a mistake, raising our hand and not getting the answer? Is that okay? As we close, I want you to understand that education transcends the mere accuracy of answers, the frequency of raised hands, and punctuality. It's not about having the right supplies. Like any meaningful journey, education is not about constant eagerness to participate or an uninterrupted string of successes. It mirrors life, where commitment and discipline intersect with vulnerability and understanding. Acknowledging this, understanding this, hearing this right now, I need educators that are listening to embrace it day by day. And if you don't have the attitude, if you don't possess the heart, if you don't, in my opinion, have the time or the capacity to do this work at a high level, if you don't have the appetite to cultivate an attitude of achievement, then maybe it's time for you to find another profession. Because the same money that you make, you could probably make work in retail these days. So this isn't that podcast episode that is encouraging. Potentially, this is that podcast episode that allows you to be reflective. In order for you to be inspiring, you have to be the inspiration. In order for you to cultivate an attitude of achievement, you have to first cultivate it in yourself. You have to be more reflective than responsive. And inspiration requires introspection. Motivation requires mirroring. And empowerment requires a commitment to self-education. I want you to listen. I want you to learn your students. And then I want you to leverage what they're communicating so that you could be able to create the absolute best possible experience environment so that these students can thrive. Because they deserve educators that actually want to be there. They deserve educators that actually care about them. They deserve educators that want to put their best foot forward. So yes, we understand that you may be tired. We understand that you may be exhausted. We understand that you may be overworked, underpaid, overwhelmed. But it comes with the territory. And sometimes that's the consequence of service. If you found this podcast episode enlightening, I want you to first share it with somebody because it's not about you. I want you to give this tool to somebody else. Number two, I want you to like it because that helps increase reach so that somebody else can hear it. And then I want you, whether you're uncomfortable or not, to subscribe to the episode, because I'm sure there's another episode on here that you either have heard or have not heard that is going to be able to help you become contagious and develop this culture, first in yourself, but then in any environment that you go in, that can be able to create miracles. Remember this: the energy you bring is the culture you create. Make yours worth catching. My name is Kyle King. I'm the host of the Contagious Culture Podcast, and we'll see you all next episode.